20th century, hundreds of different kinds of animals have disappeared from the wild. This is the story of one of them. There was only one known Marian's giant tortoise, the very last of its species. It was the oldest living vertebrate animal on Earth, possibly over 200 years old. Giant tortoises survive in only two places in the world, the Galapagos Islands in the Pacific and the Aldabra Islands in the Indian Ocean. There were once at least 6 species of giant tortoise on the main group of Seychelles in the Indian Ocean. However, because of its survival into the 20th century, the only species known to have come from this small collection of islands is Marian's tortoise. Among the largest of all giant tortoises, Marian's tortoise weighed up to 230 kilograms and measured up to 1.2 meters across the shell. They were browsing animals, spreading out during the day, feeding on vegetation. At night, they gathered in large herds. A ship's journal of 1708 from a voyage to the Seychelles recorded a sighting. There are such plenty of land turtles on this isle that sometimes you see 2,000 or 3,000 of them in a flock. They meet together in the evening in shady places and lie so close one would think those spots were paved with them. This historical picture is now all that remains of Marian's giant tortoise. The early mariners were first to encounter these fascinating giant beasts. Both military and trading vessels used islands dotted along trading routes like well-stocked larders, raiding them for fresh food, especially meat. It was for this very reason that the most famous of all animal losses came about. The Reunion dodo vanished towards the end of the 17th century. But giant tortoises too were a plentiful source of fresh meat. One animal alone could feed a whole ship's crew, so, in turn, they were just as doomed as the dodo. The sailors killed so many animals that they could gorge themselves on fresh meat for days and still have a surplus. For hungry sailors, surviving on poor diets, the discovery of the giant tortoise was cause for celebration. At first, the sailors salted the tortoise meat and rendered the remains down for fat. Later, they found that the animals could survive for months in a hold without food and water. Ship's records of the early 18th century note cargoes of between 1,000 and 6,000 giant tortoises, prolific sources of fresh meat. But numbers of giant tortoises throughout the Indian Ocean plummeted. They were being eaten out of existence. In 1766, a fully grown giant tortoise was taken from the Seychelles to a French garrison on Mauritius by the explorer Chevalier Marian de Fresnes. When the British captured the island in 1810, the creature too was formally surrendered. Known as Marian's tortoise, it was the only living specimen of its kind. This great lonely beast saw empires rise and fall in his time, and governments come and go. By 1918, the tortoise had completely lost its sight. As the end of World War I was celebrated, the creature died, not as one would imagine of old age, but by falling off a gun turret. It's known for certain that the animal was at least 180 years old. During his last 120 years, he was the only representative of his species. Perhaps that was why Marian's tortoise had clung on to life so dearly and for so long.